Hello and welcome to the Strong Not Skinny podcast show. Clarity and mindset driven strategies to motivate, help you build discipline and consistency so you can make a physique transformation a reality for the big day and beyond. I'm Zoe Sim, a yoga teacher, former chef tutor at the School of Hot London and ex-Pure Gym instructor turned strength and physique coach. I'm getting married in July 2022 and I am dress fitting ready, and I'm here to help you zip up the dress without the stress. Let's get this show started. Hello and welcome to today's episode, which is episode 6 of the Strong Not Skinny podcast show. My name is Zoe and I am your host as usual. Today I had actually prepared a separate topic for today's podcast, but I have decided to leave that for another day and instead talking about breaking out of the couple comfort zone. And you guys are like, what's that? And I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. The comfort zone that you get into when you are a couple. And, it's not the honeymoon period, okay? Like, that's something different. And what I mean by comfort zone is when you are at this stage of relationship that you are so comfortable with each other that you are able to just let go a little bit, and you can relax and you're not caring so much about your physique or your aesthetics as much. Obviously you probably still care, but you're willing to just sort of enjoy things as they are and enjoy your time together as a couple. And that means, generally speaking, enjoying food together, enjoying alcohol together, enjoying entertainment together, etc., etc. Okay, and it's just so easy to be in that comfort zone. And so I want to talk about why it's so important to break out of this sort of couple's comfort zone, because this is usually what leads on to so much weight gain. And I just want to share a bit about my experience with this, because I have been with Alan Alan is my fiance for 12 years. It's coming up to 13 years this October. We met when we were in London. He was he was in his first year of university. I was in my final year of university after having taken a year out. And so we met in London, and our relationship developed really quickly and really fast. And so I think it was in the second year, or even was it the second year or the first year of our relationship that we officially moved in together? I think it might have been the second year of our relationship that we moved in together. And Alan was living in Stepney Green at the time, and so when we first moved in together, I had gained so much weight, like so much weight. But even before, when it was that first time that we lived together, he like I said, I think he was studying for his second or final year for his undergraduate, and I got my first proper job after graduating, having just sort of, or in recovery, or having just recovered from a really serious illness like meningitis. I had cryptococcal meningitis, and I was hospitalized for over 2 months, and within that period I had 20 lumbar punctures. 20. That is obscene. For those of you who don't know what lumbar punctures are, they're also known as spinal taps, and is where they sort of stick a really big needle in your spine, and there's a tap where they drain the fluid, the CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid, from your spine, and so that reduces the pressure within the brain, and that's what was causing. That's why they call it meningitis, because it causes this, like, the fluid buildup near your in the brain, near the meninges. And so I had 20 lumbar punctures, and so you can just understand how severe my illness was. And so when I came out of that, of the hospital, I had lost a significant amount of weight. And so by significant, I basically, I think I was, by the time I came out, I was like 50 kilos. How much is that in pounds? 50 kilos. Let me just type this in. 50 kilos. I should know this in pounds. So that's 110 pounds. Okay, so that's 110 pounds. What's that in stones? That's roughly about 7.87 stone. Okay, so I was very, very, very light, especially because I'm 5'4". And it's the lightest I had ever been, the lightest. And as someone who has always struggled with their weight, and being in that yo-yo dieting vicious circle, right? This was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I am slim. But it was funny because at the time I didn't think like I was like really happy with my body as well. Like it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so thin, like, oh, it's so amazing, and this is all that I'll be wanting to do for all of my life. And it wasn't. Like, it's just really hard. It was just really odd because I had shifted so much weight because I was ill. Obviously it wasn't the best way to obviously lose weight, and that should never, I don't want anybody to ever be in that position because it's just not healthy. And especially when and it was the first time I would say I had slim and slender legs in all of my life. I have been unhappy with my thighs, right, and my calves, because I've always had quite chunky legs. And I just couldn't believe it. I weighed 50 kilos, and that was when that's when I moved in with Alan. And people were like complimenting me as well, like, oh, you look good. And yeah, I just recovered from like being really ill. So and so after living a year with Alan, we did sort of slip into this comfort zone, right, where we were just enjoying each other's company. I was like happy to be alive. I was like now looking like so good. And then fast forward a year later, and Alan was graduating for his degree. Obviously we went to the ceremony. It was great. And it was a few months after the ceremony had taken place that it really hit me. It hit me that I'm going to drop the F-bomb. I'm going to drop the F-bomb. I realized I was fat again. And so by saying I was fat, I actually really was fat, because generally speaking, I wouldn't say I've been really, really superly obese or fat. I've just always been unhappy with my weight, especially my thighs, because they have always, and when I say unhappy with my thighs, I was really ashamed of them. Okay. And I have always, even though I was never classified myself as obese, I have always struggled with my weight and how I'd look. Okay. And so it was actually at this point that I realized, a few months after Alan's graduation ceremony, that I realized how fat I'd become. I realized how fat I had become, right? Because the ceremony photos came back. His graduation photos had come back, and oh my God, I was absolutely gobsmacked as to how much weight I had gained. And it was really, I guess, like what they call it, like a reality check. And I then weighed myself. I had gone from 50 kilos within a year to 73 kilos. I'd gained over 23 kilos in the space of a year and a bit, which is just like crazy, absolutely crazy. And it's a lot of weight. And 73 kilos, I remember when I weighed myself, I was so mortified because it was nearly the same weight as Alan, and Alan is 6 foot. So you can imagine how shocking that was. And it's funny because when I look at the photo of me, or the photos of me in from his graduation ceremony, I am wearing a long sleeve top, and under and over this long sleeve top, I wore a white frilly shirt. Okay, and the buttons aren't done up. The buttons aren't done up because they couldn't be done up. I couldn't even do up the buttons of the shirt, and I just honestly did not realize how much weight I gained. I know that sounds stupid, and I know that sounds stupid, but I honestly didn't. And so I did ask Alan why he didn't tell me why I had gained so much weight, and his answer was, "Oh, because you didn't want to upset me, because he knew I would get upset," and which is true, and but also because he said he didn't mind I was plumper, and because we were still having sex anyway, so it really didn't matter. But like like I said, I've always yo-yo dieted, and my weight's always been up and down. I tried so many workouts, diets, you name it, I've done it, right? But then it's funny because I did that and that happened, but then the second time, okay, that we moved in together, because after that period where we lived together the first time, Alan then got into med school, and then I left my London job and I moved back home to live with my parents to set up my own takeaway business, and so I had to make that sacrifice. So we did that long distance relationship for over 5 years, and that was tough. But then we moved back in together. Okay, and when we moved back in together, I promised myself I would not get back into that state again, where I would go back into this like comfort zone of this couple's comfort zone, and I would not gain the weight. I promised myself I wouldn't, because also at that point I had lost again like a lot of weight, because I was really active. I was like working really long hours, chefing and running a business, and then I was also inadvertently or indirectly intermittent fasting, which was not my choice, but it just so happened the way that like the job was, and I just couldn't eat at normal times, and so there was like long, many hours where I was basically fasting. And so not only that, I was like practicing yoga, I was doing kickboxing, I was also doing pole fitness. So you can imagine like my physical activity level was through the roof. So I was like pretty fit, pretty slender. And so then, and so we moved in together, and it's just so frustrating because I said that I wouldn't, and then I did. I started gaining weight again. And not as much as before, right? I didn't gain like 20 kilos, but I knew that I had started gaining weight, and I was, in some ways I was kind of like happy. I was fine with it, but then it got to the point where I realized I was just falling in that signs again. I had learned from what I had learned from the previous lesson, right? But then it's just so easy to slip back into your comfort zones as a couple, and to be in that place where you're sitting on the sofa, you're enjoying your time together, and so much of food really is evolved around your time as a couple spent together. Because if you think about it, it's like dinner, lunch, breakfast, those are the times where generally we all get together, not just with as a couple, but with friends and family, and that is such an important time, and that's why I say like food is so emotional. And so so when we did move in together, which is quite a few years ago, before I had become a yoga instructor, before I had become a strength and physique coach, right? And I obviously didn't know back then what I know now, okay, and which is the fact that food is extremely emotional, and especially for so many of us, it does act like a comfort, and this is because food is usually, like I said, enjoyed with the people we love. For my mother and for me, even, food, like cooking food and providing food, is a way of us showing affection for others, and and when people cook you food and you receive it, that's a way of you receiving that affection. And being Chinese, we don't tend to give hugs and kisses, and so very much that is a way that I have come to associate food with comfort and happiness and affection. And so I'm guessing that's also with a lot of you guys and a lot of you listening out there as well, right? Which is why it's so hard to give up the foods that we love to eat that triggers these emotions. And it goes so much deeper than that, because it really comes down to also an energy balance, and how that energy reacts with our body, and then how then that triggers hormones, and then that releases emotions and things within us. And food does give a lot of people comfort, and unfortunately the ones that do give us comfort are usually the ones labeled bad foods, the starchy carbs, the potatoes, the rice, the pasta, bread and crisps, but they are not bad, okay? Because again, I want to stipulate, and I want to say that I don't want you to be labeling foods bad or good, because they really aren't. And so going back to like types of food, right? Like the ones that I just mentioned, starchy carbs, like potatoes, rice, pasta, biscuits, crisps, cookies, well, you name it, right? You know the ones that you really enjoy. And these are the types of foods that are known as also fast acting energy sources, which means that when you consume them, your body loves you for it. Your body loves you for it. You know, it believes that you are rewarding it every time you have like some potatoes, every time you have rice, every time you have pasta, bread, you know, it thinks that you are rewarding it, and it believes that you are rewarding it because you know, you are making its job easier. You are making its job easier, and when you consume them, your body loves you for it, like I said, and you know, it triggers your brain, and it triggers the pleasure centers, okay, in your brain, making you want to eat more and more, okay, and hence why it's so easy to overindulge, to binge eat, and you know, as a couple, if you can imagine that you are bringing two systems, okay, into play, okay, because there's now two of you, there's two systems that are doing this, you know, like you both eat these fast acting energy sources, okay, and your brain's like, yes, more. And so what happens is that you end up enabling each other a lot of the time. You're like, oh, do you want to fancy a takeout? Yeah, of course. You know, like they're the ones who are enabling it. You're not the one asking for it, so it's okay. And so then and it goes around in circles. It's like then that person goes, do you want another glass of wine? Or you know, or oh, do you want to go out to eat? Oh yeah, and you know, and it just goes on and on. So you end up enabling each other to eat these foods because both of your bodies want it. Both of your bodies want these they want the rewards of these fast acting energy sources, okay. And it's funny because you know, you can't, it's so hard to then criticize the other half, because you know, if you did, then that would give them means to criticize you back, and you don't want that, and no one wants to be criticized, right? And even when they do, as a couple, you kind of just get used to each other, and you don't take each other sometimes as seriously because you've just gotten used to each other's ways and habits, and it's hard. It's so hard being in a relationship and functioning as a couple, and you know, it is so hard, and so, you know, I want to touch on the fact that like you have to be willing to come out of this couple's comfort zone if you want to make a physique transformation, if you want to zip up the dress, okay. And it's hard to do that, and I'm not saying it's easy, okay. I'm not saying it's easy at all. And you know, and the reason why I want to why I'm talking about this is because, like I said, I've been in this space. I have had the experience, and you know, what have I done about it? Well, I have had to dig deep. I've had to figure out the, like, you know, the reasons why it was so important for me to obviously change the way that I am, because you know, I felt that I was the desire to change was greater than remaining the same. And so, you know, that the onus is on the person who wants that change for to happen. And so, you know, as the, let's say you are that person that is you're listening to this, and you're the person who wants that change. So the onus falls on you to be able to instigate these changes and be able to communicate to your partner why you want to then bring both of you out of this comfort zone, okay? Because you need to then change your eating habits, and you need to change how you function as a couple, which is so difficult, especially when you've been in a relationship for so long and you've had this like you have a way of functioning well. You know, that person has these roles, this person has that roles, and when you start to disrupt that, you know, you can cause problems. And so that's why it's so important that you understand exactly the reason why you're doing this, because if you just say to your partner, I just want to lose weight, okay, they are not going to really understand you're not giving them enough reason to support you and to be willing to get themselves out of the comfort zone. Okay, so that's why it's so hard, because not only are you bringing yourself out of your own comfort zone or having to do that, you then have to bring your partner out of their comfort zone and give them a good enough reason for them to do it, which is why it's so important that you understand why it's so important for you to lose weight, because it's not always just about losing weight. It really isn't. And so that's something that I've had to do, and I've had to explain, and so that's really changed things for Alan and I. We've had to work really hard on our relationship, and people will see us as like really well functioning couple, but and I guess generally we are, because we work really hard on that. We work really hard, and we talk a lot, and I have had to instigate and express very deeply how important making changes are, and so that's meant that Alan has had to start making, for example, he started making his own meals a lot of the time, and we didn't eat the same things, and we generally because generally I was always the one who would cook our foods. I would do all of it. I would be, because I'm the ex-chef, and I don't like washing up. So I was the one who always made the meals. I was the one who always cooked. And so, it was hard when I realized that, the changes I had to make were put so much pressure on me that there was no way that I could just make my meals as well as his, especially when we were not eating the same things. And it was just too much. It was too much. And so I had to bring him out of his comfort zone, and that took a lot of work to do. Okay. And I want you to know that, as women, it is so much harder to change our physiques and to get it to look the way that you want it to, because we are disadvantaged when it comes to physique and having to shift the weight. We do have it harder, and and I'm not just saying that just because it actually is biologically true. We may have the same organs, the bones, biological structure, but there are massive functional differences, And it's these functional differences which make it so much harder for us to look good and to feel good about how we look. Evolution dictates that, women are made to survive, to bear children, and to ensure our offspring survive. Okay. And so this means that we hold on to fat easier. It's harder to lose the fat once we've got it. And not only that, it's hard for us to grow muscle. And that's so important. Okay, like and that hinders our fat burning potential. Whereas men, well, actually going back to that, the more fat that you have or we have, the higher chance of us surviving a famine. And so therefore, a lot of our roles are to do with being able to reproduce, and then be able to produce breast milk so that the infants and the babies can survive on breast milk. Okay, and breast milk is very fatty, and so we need a lot of fat, hence why it's so hard for us to lose fat, and it's easy for us to gain fat. Whereas men are the opposite. They are biologically set to fight, to protect, to hunt, and this means that they don't need as much fat, okay, but they need a lot of muscle. Okay, and so this then makes it easy for them to lose fat and burn fat, which is just so annoying. Okay, and which is why it's so as a couple, okay, and let's say you are in a heterosexual relationship, that when you both eat the same portions, or maybe you eat not as much as him, you will still find it easier to gain weight than he will. Okay, and it's so hard to not get sucked into this comfort zone where you overindulge. You just want to sit together, you want to watch Netflix, and and as women, we will always be the one who will gain more weight, not just quickly, but like I said, we will always find it hard to shift quickly as well. And so one of the hard lessons I have had to learn, okay, is that when you are in a relationship and you are as a couple, okay, you must remember 2 rules. If you continue to eat the same foods, your portions should always be smaller than his. I know it sounds obvious, but it's hard to eat a lesser amount when your brain and your biology dictates and wants you to eat a lot of fast acting energy sources like carbs, okay, and and so that it can easily be turned into fat for storage. But also I want to tell you that it's also, right, not good to cut out all your carbs, okay, and this is because it affects your hunger levels. And so that's also why, okay, it's that we are in this like yo-yo dieting circle, because it messes up when we don't have carbs. It also messes up with our hormones, and so that's another factor why we have it so much harder. And secondly, if you have a significant amount of body weight to lose, you need to, okay, not eat the same foods as your partner. You have to make sacrifices, okay? And you know, don't be afraid to come out of that couple comfort zone, because you know, getting uncomfortable is the only way you'll be able to change, okay? Getting uncomfortable is the only way you'll be able to change, and both of you have to do this. And so you have to give your partner a really, really good enough reason for him to be able to come out of his comfort zone as well. And so, and generally speaking, when I do speak to a lot of the brides that I work with and the members of my program, and you know, once you have figured out why it's so important to you and you're able to convey this to the people that love you and to your partner, you know, they generally come on board. They really do come on board. And if they don't, then you need to start questioning why that is. Okay. And so, you know, especially if you are in a relationship that dictates that one of you does all the cooking and the other one does all the washing, it's going to be so hard, and you will have to make a dramatic change as in your functional relationship, and you have to have these serious conversations. And this has changed, like I said, with Alan over the years, and we've worked hard to understand, you know, the roles are in our relationship should be adaptable, and they're not set, okay? They're not set. And so with women, I know that it's so hard to not feel like, to not feel guilty, to feel like we have to do more. We're, you know, that's set within us as well. You know, that is so set within us. We're like made to like care, we're made to nurture. And so, and when we feel like, when we suddenly, you know, don't do what we think that we have to do, we feel the guilt. And so, you know, it's so hard for us to make changes for ourselves and not feel bad about it, okay? And so, you know, that is, it is so important that you do come out, find a way to come out of your comfort zone, because you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable if you want to see the changes, if you want to make a physique transformation a reality for the big day and beyond, and you want to zip up the dress without the stress, okay? Sacrifices must be made, and that means within your relationship, and it is just so hard to do. And sometimes you don't want to rock the boat, especially when things are functional, and when you feel like you don't have quite as a supportive person or a partner, and therefore you need to then think about working on your relationship. And I am not a relationship expert, but I do know that that is something that you must work on separately as well, in order for you to be able to get to where you want to be. And so, you know, just telling them that you want to lose weight is just not good enough. You need to give yourself a better reason, okay? You need to give your fiance a better reason. You need to give your husband a better reason, your partner a better reason as to why you want to make this change. And so that you can finally break out of this comfort zone that is causing you to gain weight, and getting you stressed, and you know, feeling stressed about your dress fittings. And that's something that I want to leave with you, and that is pretty much from me. I hope that I have made it very clear that that is the only way for you to break out of the comfort zone, is to have some self-discipline, have that clarity as to why it is, why it's so important to you to shift the weight, and the reasons behind that, and to just recognize that, you know, you can't be in that couple comfort zone if you want to make the transition to change your physique, to make that physique transformation a reality for the big day and beyond. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please leave a review so that other brides and wives can get motivated and stay motivated to make a physique transformation a reality for the big day and beyond. I would be so grateful if you could take this action for me. Subscribing to the show will get you notified each time a show gets released, so you never miss a thing. My name is Zoe Sim, and you can reach me at The Pumped Yogi on Instagram, or join my Facebook group where you can join my live weekly coaching sessions and ask questions in real time.